Go ahead.
All right, so it's June 17, 2025, and this is the meeting of the Budget and Finance Committee. It's 6:02, so I'll call the meeting to an order. The chair, Council Murphy, is running a little late, so we're gonna start without him. So the first thing we have to do is approve the meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Yeah, I don't have any issue with the meeting minutes. Everything here looked fine and in order. So yeah, that looks fine to me.
All right. All right.
Do you want to just do the vote?
Oh, we have to do a vote for that.
Yeah.
Johnny?
Aye.
Myself, aye. All right, we'll go on to public comment. Any public comment today?
Yes, if I may,
Yes, you may.
I would like to see the steel workers bargaining contract and the appropriation transfer both put on hold. And the reason why I say that is because we don't know what the outcome is going to be. And I don't think that we should be locking ourselves into something with something that may pass or may not pass. And I think depending on what the voters do, that will give us better headway in terms of future negotiations, what the town can afford. It can afford more if it passes. It can't afford if it doesn't pass. We all know that. So let's see what the townspeople do. And I think that we should put it on hold in the meantime.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Ellenberg.
I'm just looking forward to hearing discussion on A, B, and C under E, just the discussions.
Okay. Is there anybody else? Is anybody online?
No, no one's online.
All right, so then we'll close the public comments. And we'll go on to order 0 FY 25-28 068 United Steelworkers Bargaining Contract Ratification. So.
So
Yeah,
this
motion to
United
open.
Steelworkers covers all of our department head positions. There's 25 people in the union across the whole organization. This is a successor contract, the one that expired last June 30th. And so it's almost a year old.
You guys could review that. I have a copy. If you want to look at it, yeah.
And the town started negotiating probably over a year ago with this union, as it did with a number of other ones. We finally reached a settlement that is in your packet. We are strongly urging that you do consider passing it, although the finance committee did not meet last night, so we don't have that advice. So this may need to wait till July 15th. But the reason I say that is that we like the BAA agreement that you approved recently for the administrative positions. This one is in line with that, with a couple of minor changes that Lori will go into in more detail because she was in the negotiations and I wasn't. So it's a 2% increase each of the 3 years, similar to that one. There is a change to just the 12th step for 7 people who are at the top, because we recognized through all of the negotiations that we have some structural challenges with what we pay for those types of positions. Matter of fact, we lost the Council on Aging director who went to another community, in part because we aren't able to pay more than the union contract allows. Lori can give you more of the details, but one of the things that was really important, like every time we negotiate contracts, is to continue to find ways to make it more affordable for the town. So in the past, we would just, to keep the contract kind of the correct place in the marketplace, we would maybe take off the lowest step where someone could start and we'd add them to the top. We didn't do that this time. We purposely said, sorry, you can't continue to just make this more expensive. We need to really look hard at how we can keep good employees, but at the same time, keep it affordable. And so the 12th step got increased itself by 2.5%. And most employees, when I looked at the list, and you can look at the list too, are in the lower end of the salary scale. So it would take them a while to get there if they stayed. We also made a change to vacation carryover, we started limiting what people can do. So again, trying to make sure that we're not adding to our unfunded, not unfunded, but our compensated absences that would cost us more in the long term to pay out maybe later when someone is making more money. Again, to keep costs in line. This union was already paying the higher percentage for health insurance before, so that wasn't a change. So those I think are the highlights, but you know the details better than I, so.
Yeah, so, thanks, like, she probably collected all the information and informed everyone. As a longtime employee too, I've known, and if I sent, the copies of Carolyn with the HR gave us copies of the old contract and that MOA and then this new one. So if you look at the other contract from last time, it said COLAs were 011. But also in there, we added 5 steps to the grid. And we took 5 steps pre-step. So historically, salary grids are always outdated, right? Until they do a compensation study for the group. In this group, I think USW A and B, they are department leaders and our assistants and the professional staff of the town. So typically they would, look at the salary grid and go, well, it's outdated. And so that they added the 5 steps in the last contract, meaning that was 10%, right? So it went out 10%. So the COLAs were smaller. And this one, we think that it's prudent for someone in a position for so many years, you're gonna max out at some point, right? If you're in a position for 20 years, why would you keep getting 2.5, unless that's the way the company rolls. But as a municipal government, we feel that there's gotta be a max. And once you reach that, then there's no more steps. So one of our goals in doing all the negotiations was to really work on this, and we've gotten that message across. And so we felt that taking that 12th step and giving it a little more was an incentive for us to get the steps maxed out.
Yeah.
So, and when we bargain, we have to, hear all of the back and forth, the median income's gone up 20% and this and that, and cost of living for people. So we're, of course, we want the best for our employees too, but at the same time, we have to keep reminding everyone, well, we're paying you taxpayer money, we have to be, prudent and fiscally responsible. And that was our mission to do some of these contracts. So I think that, it was a hard pill for some of the longtime members who have been here for years to really take it in, but I think they get the message. So we were, that was the goal. And I think we were able to do a good job for the town to limit the steps in the future. So we just, when new people come along, you don't know what's going to happen, but we want this to be stopped, we don't want a new negotiating team or a new counselor or a new town manager to come in and go, oh yeah, I think we ought to add steps. So I think us taking a stand right now was a good effect for the town.
So Laura, can I ask you a question? So did steps stop at 17? Or
12.
12. So what I read, employees at or above step 12 receive a 2.5% added to their base salary. So they're still getting a raise rather than
Just
going up.
This year they are,
Just
they're
this
at
year.
a 12. So they're gonna, the incentive was to make the step between 11 and 12, 5%. So that,
Okay, because I don't
That's
think I read it just this year.
Just this year.
It's just this
And it's
year.
only for the 7 people who were at step,
at 12.
at 12 now. Nobody else
Okay.
will get that. Everyone
So
else
then
will get the
next
2.
year, they don't get a step, they only get the COLA. The year after, they don't get a step, they get the COLA. And then if
Okay.
somebody's coming from 11 and a 12, I don't think anyone in 26 is. In 27, there'll be 4 employees.
So there's no steps to 12. Once you hit 12.
Once you hit 12,
Yeah.
that is the max
All
that
right.
you're.
I have a few questions, John. Do you want to ask them first?
You can go ahead, you can go.
Okay, so are all employees get the evaluation done before this contract is out?
Yep.
Okay. And the older one said that in July 1st, 2022, each year that employees will get a 4,000 stipend if they don't take part in the health insurance. But I think in this one that you just done in 2024, it said it's a one-time stipend. Do you still do that?
So we've eliminated it from new employees.
Okay.
It was an incentive back maybe 10 years ago.
So are those employees still getting it for every year?
No, not, if they only got it, if they chose their health
were-
insurance somewhere else, like their spouse had through another company,
Okay,
they would get it to go off ours. The reason being, it was less expensive to pay somebody $4,000 than pay
Pay the
$15,000 or
$25,000
$20,000 for a
the town
family
costs.
plan, if that's what was.
There's only a little legacy of a few people. There's probably 10 in the whole town that
and they still get it once a year?
once a year,
Yeah.
but they're dropping off because no new employees can do
So
that.
how many people do you think get the 4,000 once a year?
Right now, it's about 10
10.
in the
But
whole
it's that
town.
if we had to pay for a plan, it would cost more than four.
Right.
That was the
Yeah,
most behind it.
And that, we've talked about maybe implementing that again, if we could get a savings for people coming off of the town's plan, because.
well, how much does it cost?
Well, the town shares at 75%. It's probably about $25,000.
Have we ever reached out to the school system and see if we could combine to make it bigger and do it that way?
Well,
We're in
we
a better
already-
group than they are right now,
So
to be
they can
honest.
with us?
Well,
Much
so what I heard is they're looking around at other groups, maybe the one we're already in,
Yeah.
to see if that's
Because
worthwhile.
sometimes the bigger the group, the more the savings.
Well, that's why
Depends.
we're in Mayflower, so Mayflower is a very competitive group. They've done really well for the towns that are a part of that. They've invested their money fairly well. We've got a good board there, and they do a really good job at keeping the costs down.
We've also talked offline about looking at HSAs in the future
Yeah,
as a method, and usually when you get those in place, that we negotiated them when I was in Wellesley, we actually offered to pay part of the HSA payment to people to join the high deductible plan. And even with paying them, we were still saving money every single employee. So
Okay.
that's a future possibility.
Right, so again, we did talk about that, bringing that stipend back to get the cost of our insurance plans down. But we didn't, we felt that this wasn't the year to do that. Without a
So I have
time.
one more question, because I'm not sure if I'm reading this right, so I wrote it down exactly what it said. It said, all current employed USW bargaining unit members shall receive a 500 stipend at FY '22 for signing this agreement. Do they still get that?
No,
No.
that was that year, because
Okay.
they got a zero COLA.
Okay, because some of the contract is like, this is in this, and then the other one was. I
Yeah,
wanted to
so
make sure.
this year, all the MOAs, we're integrating it into a one full,
Okay,
which hasn't been done in probably the last 3 or 4 contracts.
yeah,
I'm guessing what they decided to do was it was times were tough and we needed to make sure we wanted to give them something, but didn't want to make a percentage, which, continues to build.
yeah.
So it was agreed, we'll give you $500. That's it. And that was the only year that happened in that agreement.
Okay.
It's
All right,
just,
John, so you.
Yeah, so I just want to understand for 2024, the money that's retroactive, are we doing one-time payments this year for previous wages? And how does that work into the budget?
So this contract will start it on July 1st of 2024, so that's in fiscal 25, so that's this fiscal year. So they would get a retroactive.
Back to July.
Back to July. And
Okay,
that's what the funding order after the contract is for. Because we budgeted, their salary with their steps,
Mhm.
but with the COLA, that would be the cost.
Okay.
that was in the one-time fund that now needs to be put into the various line items where these employees are to be able to make that payment.
Yeah, that's my next question was I saw we're moving money out of stabilization to pay for salaries, but this is just a one-time thing
That's why
for.
they call it
This
one
was-
time.
Yeah. Well, I saw that and I was like, that's not a good practice.
So that's,
Well,
yeah.
It actually is in the year you're negotiating, by putting it in the fund, you've kind of kept your cards like this about how much you
Yeah.
have. And you're not telling them.
Mhm.
This going forward, that we baked in 2% because that's where we thought we were gonna be, so you're not gonna need to move money in FY 26.
Yeah.
It's a strategy.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I just want to make sure that was just a one-time thing. This
Oh,
was,
yeah.
It's just sort of for this current year retro.
yeah, that's retro for this past year.
Yep.
Yes,
Um,
that ends June 30.
okay, so in this contract effective July 1st, 2025, there's a 2% COLA on all of those steps. So the people in step 12, they're gonna only get a 2% next year. Is that
If
correct?
they've already gotten there. In this year, yes.
If they're at 12 this year, they'll stay in 12.
Yeah, they will only
perpetuity.
get 2%, correct.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And everybody below them will get their step raise plus a 2%.
Correct.
Okay, so those are what, like 4 and 5%-ish, if I'm looking
So
at
it
your,
comes at 4.5.
okay,
2.5% step, 2% COLA.
yeah,
And that's a pretty typical for wage plans in the public sector, 2.5, 3 generally.
okay. I'm looking back at how we negotiated in 22 or 23, whenever that was, where there was a 0 and a 1 and a 1. Was there any discussion over having the lower steps at a lower COLA in this contract so that we can manage those steps better? Because, when we're obviously looking at our budget, we want to try to keep wages as close as we can to like 2.5%, 3%.
Right.
So when I see the 4 and 4.5, it kind of lets off a little
Right.
bit of a red flag. So were there any efforts to kind of mitigate that by having a lower COLA at lower steps? Because the teachers did that in their contract this year. They gave a 3% to the top steps, and then the lower steps got a lower COLA.
2%, yeah. Well, we kept it all at 2, so I think, in that year we did the 011, that was the year we gave them $500 at the signing, and it was a 0% COLA, but we added 5 steps to the grid.
Yeah, so they still got to move up.
Yeah,
Whatever
so
that
now they're
was,
not
like
gonna move
2.5.
up like that anymore. That's the legacy change we're making.
So
to-
costing out that contract, you would have had to cost out the 2.5, so that times 5 is 10%.
Mhm.
Plus the COLA, so that was really a 12% contract over 3 years.
Yeah, so did we
So this is
discuss
just
having a
6%.
smaller COLA for the lower steps? Just to, keep salaries in pace, because we're looking at year over year, trying to keep that on the lower side.
Well, not with this group,
Yeah.
because they're the department leaders and the assistants who run the offices and the management, so it could be a strategy, sure, for the future.
I think it's also what I've learned is that this is the one union where we are not keeping pace with the market of our peers, communities. Positions that have gotten increasingly hard to fill, assessor, building official, council on aging director. We got lucky. We lose those people. They're not easy to find and not likely. And us being able to track them for what we pay to get somebody who is seasoned could be very difficult. So it's not the union I would have chosen to say, this is the one I really want to try to push back even further.
Mhm.
I'm curious, does anyone happen to know the difference? What's the step increase in this teacher's contract? What is the percentage between steps? If we're 2.5, what are they? Do we know?
No, I didn't really.
It depends on where you look at it. Some of the lower steps are 4 to 6% steps.
Yeah, so ours are 2.5.
Yeah,
So.
yeah.
That was my point.
Oh, yeah, no, it's a great point, but I'm using the yardstick, 2.5%, obviously, with Prop 2.5, and then obviously with new growth, 3 to 4%. So I'm just trying to,
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
find a way to get everybody as close to there as possible.
Sure.
And
So
that's-
notwithstanding, I already picked up on teachers last week, of course, but just being fair across the board,
Oh, sure.
trying to keep things in the threes. That's.
I mean, this lady's gonna have to balance that budget every year, so, and frankly, if the override doesn't pass, and we're laying people off, these are the people we're expecting to be carrying the load
Yep.
when their people are gone.
Mhm.
So, I would worry about that. I'd worry about, loss of our bargaining, credentials with them.
Mhm.
and an unfair labor practice for bargaining in bad faith.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's all something to just kind of put in the sausage mill and understand that, it's tough. I mean, if this doesn't pass on Saturday, we've got a meeting planned on Tuesday to come up with Plan B.
Mhm.
And figure it out.
So this has to go back to finance.
Yeah, they didn't have a quorum last night, so we can't vote on it tonight, unfortunately. We were really hoping to, but they'll have to wait till July, and I let Eric know that,
Okay.
the bargaining, the representative.
So would that make all three of these going back to finance?
Yeah, all three we're gonna have to wait
They
on.
didn't meet.
Okay, so they need.
Well, non-affiliated follows what the way it works here is that non-affiliated, non-union employees follow what the USW does, so that's why that order's on here.
Oh, you want to say anything?
Sorry. I'm still catching up.
Yeah, so should we make a motion to
Make a
continue it then?
Continue or to send it to finance?
Well, it's already in
Oh,
finance.
it is on finance. They haven't met.
They were
They're gonna
supposed to meet
again
last
next- They're
night.
gonna try again next Monday, but that doesn't help you
So
until,
once they have, we want to wait for what they say? And
Well,
then
I
do it
think
again?
we're not gonna be able to vote on it tonight anyway.
Right.
So we might as well just continue it to another meeting so we have more time to go over it and hear what they have to say.
All right. So do I have a motion to continue?
well, don't you guys usually take separate,
Yeah.
whatever they
Yeah.
vote may be different than what you do?
Oh, yeah, of course. I
Okay.
mean, I would like to, if we're gonna have to wait anyway, then we're gonna have another budget and finance meeting anyway. Give Paul more time to get up to speed and have a discussion about it as well. So I would,
Maybe we
I'd be
can meet
okay
with
with that.
them. We don't have it all at once.
yeah, that's fine.
I
And
mean,
we're
it's
gonna have
up to
some,
you.
we're gonna have some large conversations, like you said, if the override doesn't pass, what that means. So I would like to, wait until we have a clearer picture of what's going on.
Then will be a motion to continue.
So moved.
Second. Yeah. Are you in?
All those in favor, yeah?
Aye,
Aye.
All right, Paul, it's all yours. We're on this one.
you're giving up the chair?
Well, the chair's here. I'm passing it on to the chair.
Which order was that? Was that all three or?
That was
This
for
is the first one.
68, but they're all,
69.
69 is connected to that. That's the transfer.
Yeah.
And then 70 is non-union transfer.
I recognize that it's hard to think about giving raises when you're in tough times, but I just would caution you from experience
Mhm.
to be thoughtful about, moving forward, even though it may be tough.
Well, I think what you said about these are being the department heads and stuff, right? So most of all these are department heads
Yeah.
mostly?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can see that.
So that was order 69, sorry.
That was
Yeah,
68.
60. Yeah, 68.
So
68 is the contract itself, 69 was a transfer.
Okay, I would assume we're gonna do the same with that, right?
Yeah, so I would make a motion to continue that discussion to our next meeting.
And that's order OFY 25-069, just for clarity.
Yes.
I'll second motion.
Any discussion, Mary, on that?
No. We're gonna be doing them all, right? So we might as well discuss it next time.
Yeah.
Because we're at the meeting, so we still have 3 discussions.
So on
Yeah.
order OFY 25-070. Same thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Motion. Well,
I'll make a motion to continue to our next meeting.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes. And then moving on to ordinance DFY 25-019, adoption of clause 221 of Massachusetts General Law, chapter 59, section 5, HERO Act. This is what we heard a little bit about last budget and finance meeting.
This is, this is actually I.
Okay,
J is what Scott Pitt had talked about last time.
okay, I see. Jay's the next one.
Cost of
Yeah.
living.
I is the cost of living, and I think if we were to do it this year, which we're not able to do this year, it was about a 3.3% increase to the veterans here. And I can't remember exactly.
It was like 400
What
to
it was.
420 or something, very low.
Yeah, this was a low cost to
Yeah.
the town. It was the 22J, which was quite expensive. and that has a percentage of disability assigned to it. And we would, I personally would like to see that as part of a larger discussion as to different tax abatements for seniors as well as part of that greater discussion. So
That's J.
that's the J, yeah. So now I'm mixing the discussions, but so for 22I, this is just basically a cost of living adjustment at 3.3%.
Okay.
Did you have any comments on this one, Mary?
No, we pretty much covered this one.
Yeah, I think this one, that the cost is so low and just to keep up with the
Yeah.
pace of,
I think we went over it really well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so I would be in favor of passing this, on the 22I on its own. And then we'll obviously go to J.
Do you want to make a motion or recommend?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to recommend to the
I'll
council.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Passes 3-0. On to general ordinance D FY 25-020. This is adoption of clause 22J, as you just mentioned, of the HERO Act.
Yeah, so this is one that we had Mr. Scott Pitta eloquently present to us at our last meeting, which I really appreciated. We probably want to bring him, if it's appropriate, to the full council and have him present something similar so that we could all get educated on it. And this one, that I have it in here as a 50%. That slides a bunch. We could have it lower, we could have it higher. And as Blythe has kind of explained to me, there are other incentives for veterans who are elderly that we may want to explore those options as well. I would personally want to see us do that in concert so that we have kind of like an overall plan of what incentives we could offer folks who are elderly, notwithstanding their veteran status, and those monies are reimbursable from the state. So we would want to kind of shuffle the veterans into this bracket over here because it is reimbursable and everybody else kind
And
of
bigger.
over here. What's that?
And bigger depending on.
Yeah, it could be bigger,
Yeah.
right? I forget the article is like 40 or something.
41C.
41C or something like that. Shelley sent us that presentation, right?
Yeah.
And that's a long one, and that would probably warrant a couple discussions from our end, over the summer, preparing for next year what we want to do, because when we do adopt this, it's going to cost us a considerable amount of money. On the lower end, 50,000; on the higher end, over 100,000 to the town's operating budget. If that's around
Yeah,
correct,
so
right?
they'd be processed like exemptions or abatements, so it will come off of tax revenue.
Yeah, it's less
We wouldn't get
revenue
a
we're collecting.
reimbursement, yeah, so
Yeah.
we wouldn't get a reimbursement from the state that we could count on the next year.
There's probably like a algebra equation where we have a certain percentage here where we incentivize veterans to, well, don't take this one because it's less, take this 41C or whatever it is, which is more.
For that, more beneficial to them, we would always advise someone who's coming in, well, if you do this, because certain ones you can't take all of them, you can only.
Yeah.
So we're always looking at the big picture for that person that would, they'd get the best benefit of it.
They would maximize their benefit, and the
Right.
net cost of the town would be less because we're gonna.
Yeah,
get
because if
reimbursed.
they happen to be qualified as a senior, that's beneficial to them and beneficial to the town.
Yeah.
If they're
whatever
not a
is
senior,
accepted.
then you're gonna put them in the other one,
Mhm.
and the town knows that's gonna cost the town more, but the veteran still wins.
And what this does is depending on, when it's accepted, is we have to increase our abatement and allowance budget, which deducts off the revenue. That's how the mathematical portion of estimating that comes along.
Do we do any education currently around this that you've seen in the last year?
On what?
On both of
Exemptions.
these exemptions, yeah.
Shelley, well, I think I don't remember who I said this to, which, they've been tracking these for a number of years, but the town trying to be mindful of cost really didn't move forward with pushing, pushing is the right word, advocating for these because you didn't feel it could afford to spend the money. So if that's changed, then there's lots of things we can talk about and decide what's the best mix for the community and at what cost and how we're gonna cover that.
And, doing a little kind of education process of sitting at the senior center and explaining it. I
Yeah.
think they have some good brochures that we do have down at the senior center, I think, but Kathy Hayes, you know, tries to educate them too. And so we have to make sure we're talking to the senior center staff, making sure they know any changes and updates. So it is kind of an educational piece of it too. And also, the more of these that we add in the assessing department, then the more the workload in that office grows too, because it's a lot of handling paperwork. Everything has to be reviewed, you know, the income statements, and it's a lot to put, and the assessors, the Board of Assessors has to like read through them too. So, you know, it puts a little burden on our assessing department. So we have to look at that workload too.
And we would do the same with Greg, Veterans Agent,
Yeah,
to make sure that he's educated on these things.
Exactly.
Right, and sending people down.
absolutely.
And sometimes you deal with some folks who are just not savvy at what they all have to do.
Yeah.
Pull together financially in order to be able to come prove that they qualify for one. So there's just.
So we talking about two different things, veterans and senior citizens?
Yeah.
So on the senior citizens, if you could really clarify for them, because they say even though they get the savings, then they get taxed on it. So they want to understand that because they get a 301 or whatever it is. So
So,
they're
no,
saving-
that's the SAVE program, so that's.
So this is completely different?
Yeah.
So the
They
SAVE
would,
program
that
is
would be a
one
good one to
exemption.
educate them though. as-
So yeah, that's a different
Okay.
exemption, SAVE, and
And
then all
maybe
the
one of you
others
guys
are
could go down to the center,
Absolutely.
because I have, they asked me a lot, and I said, I don't understand it a lot, but I'll bring it up.
Absolutely.
So
Sure.
I asked Tina a little bit, town clerk, but I'm not getting it either enough to explain it to them fully.
Sure. No, we-
Tina doesn't really handle that.
Yeah.
That's how town clerk functions.
No, but she had sent me something about the savings and the senior thing, and I was trying to read it, and then I was asking questions, I'm like, I'm gonna have to.
So our HR department manages it in terms of
Yeah.
hiring the seniors. I mean, it's like an HR process to make sure you match up the senior with.
Yeah, but their
qualifications.
question was, well, they get taxed on that savings that they get, so say if they save like
Sure.
$1,000, then they get taxed, so they wanna know how much tax, is it worth it?
Depends on their tax bracket.
Exactly, so they wanna understand that more, where I
Sure.
couldn't give that
Sure.
information,
Yeah, we
so
can do that.
I would appreciate it, and they would too. Thank you.
Anything further on this?
No.
No, so, yeah, I think it's, well, I would make a motion to continue this conversation, because I think this is gonna be probably a multi-month conversation as part of a larger, tax abatement strategy with senior citizens and whatnot. So I think we should take in consideration all the different options that we have before we just unilaterally decide on this one without considering the other ones.
I'll second that motion.
Oh,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on to discussion. First item listed is the golf course. I met with Blake and Lori, it was 2 weeks ago now. It was a month ago. It's funny, yeah. Asking if they could share some information regarding the golf course and what the historical look back of that was and where it's going currently. And then also talking about that third party vendor who helps service the golf course on our behalf too. So I don't know if there's a general, you gave a pretty good summary when we met about this, and then you shared a bunch of great documents with us.
Yeah, so sure, so the decision, obviously, to go to a management company was based on a financial analysis of the Golf Enterprise Fund. For a number of years, I think it's been almost, is it 30 years?
We had it for 30 years, of course,
So I
yeah.
think it'll be
Well, they
30.
bought the land in 1978.
Yeah, so I think it'll be open 30 years, maybe next year. Of course, but anyway, so I went through all of the records, and found that over the course of from 2000 and,
16.
yeah, 16, from fiscal 11 to 15, the general fund subsidized the golf fund by 577,000. And then from 16 to when in 2023, it was almost 775,000. So at the time, before we were looking into and this has been an ongoing conversation, as far as with the golf director who is no longer here. He retired and then passed away. Mr. Simons did a wonderful job managing the golf course, managing with recreation. But every time we would talk about the revenue of the golf course, he'd be like, oh my God, there was oh, it was a rainy season, or, yeah, you know, like Charlie, you know, and he was wonderful. If he could have, paid out of his pocket all the time, he would have, but, you know, it was a difficult decision at the time of the transition to go out to bid and have a professional company.
Was it only an 8 golf course at that time? Because the hole, it wasn't 18 holes at the time, right? When Charlie had it was only 8 holes?
It's been 18 for a long number
Long
of
time.
years.
I thought I read that. It was, they
They
started off.
would build an 8-hole golf course.
Nine.
The nine.
Nine, sorry.
Gotta get you on the
Yeah.
course, Mary.
I know, of course, I know how to play it, believe it or not. But usually, I mean, I thought I read that they had started it as a 9. And with the rainy seasons, that's why they were having difficulties.
Well, I've been with the town since 2003, and it's always been 18 now.
Okay. So when did it open?
Almost 10 years ago.
I'm just curious because the town bought it, not for that.
Right, so
bought
the
it,
town, you
But
know,
they have it, they bought it also for water supply. So is there a lot of water supply down there that we're not using?
Was that where Burn Street Wells are nearby?
so I have
Yeah.
the history from that presentation, and it says, it's known as the Chaffee Farm.
Yeah.
It was 250, there was a proposed 256 lot division, proposed there for the purpose of playground, recreation, conservation, and water supply. The land was purchased for $937,000 in 1978. So then in 78, the Chappie family also gifted the town to another 25.7 acres and a 4-acre parcel of forestry. So, and then in 1994, the town appropriated $5 million for the purpose of developing and constructing the golf course. So I don't see anything on here about a 9-hole or 8. I think it was a 9-member golf commission, maybe.
Yeah, I think I was looking way
Yeah.
back, you know, how you can look up different things.
Yeah.
So I thought it was like you said, he said it was rainy. That was in there, said that it was only 9 holes. But
Yeah,
anyways, I
well,
was just asking.
it was, you know, always dependent on the weather, and I think when it first opened, there was a management company, if I remember correctly, but it wasn't working out. Wasn't being managed well, so the town took it over. And if you look at the information that was sent in this presentation, there was more expenditures than revenue.
Yeah,
So, you know, I mean, I can't really speak for the years of what had happened, but all I can tell you is that the taxpayer and the general government was subsidizing the golf course for many years. So that is really the reason why the decision was made to, you know, go out to bid, hire a contractor to run it like a professional business, because
Now, are
that's
there
really
town
what it
employees
is.
down there working?
There are no town employees.
Okay, but we supply clothing for them and stuff like that?
No, we don't do anything except for collecting the revenue.
Okay.
We own it, we're the owners. We have a
Yeah,
lease agreement with them, we have a lease agreement with,
that was
Derek
just renewed, right?
Yes,
yeah, I
yeah,
think
they wanted to make some further investments, like purchasing new
golf
golf carts
carts.
or more golf carts.
so in
Doing
order,
a whole, those other golf carts were?
they were old.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they bought out the lease that the town had for the newer ones that we had, but the older ones, we were just giving them away because they really weren't worth a lot. But I think, having this company that's managing it now, they know the industry, they know how to market. The town wasn't in the business to be marketing golf, being, you know, doing the things. We hired employees, maybe not, that didn't have all that golf experience to do things that, because we weren't in the business. So I think, you know, having it run professionally, you know, you could see there was a presentation by the Trim Indigo, that they go by a couple of names.
Yeah.
They run golf courses all over the United States, and they're very successful. So they were very pleased. They had, the rounds were all up, the percentage, all their ratings, all their, you know, get Google marks and so they really take care of the course. You know, we work with them. They have there's a piece inside the agreement that they put a percentage of the sales that they generate to capital. You know, that we meet with them and they discuss what they feel, you know, needs improvement. And it's always a discussion with the town manager's office as far as, you know, before anything's done. So make sure it's a good decision for the town as well. So we think it's been over the last 10 years, a successful revenue stream, and we, from the outlook and everything we're hearing, we think it will continue that way, so.
Yeah, I'm looking at the most recent presentation, and they have $2.4 million in revenue in 2024, which seems like a significant improvement over, 2021, because I know there's transition 2022 of 1.6 million, so that seems like, pretty decent growth.
Right.
Do we know what the contract states as to exactly how this 465 number in 2025 is determined as a percentage of total revenue? Probably do math and see if that comes out to a round number, but do we know how much how it's determined what the town gets?
Yeah, so there's a formula in the lease agreement.
Like 30, just over 25.
Yeah, so if it's over a certain tier, it's a tier. There's like a 2% if it's over a certain million, 1.5 million, and then the percent after. So there's like a guarantee of like, I forget.
Oh, there's a 125 lease fee it says in that.
Oh, so
revenue.
that is the, that's an annual payment that they make to the town for using the Old Scotland Links name and brand.
Oh, okay.
So that's separate from the revenue of the percentage of the sales.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at like the old numbers that they have here, and they were doing 1.8 million in 2002. It's pretty dang good, but then it just was like flat for 15 years.
So you know why they did so well? Because that was the year after COVID.
Oh no, 2002.
Oh, 2000.
Yeah, looking all the way back to 2002. Yeah, they did really well there, but this is when the town was obviously managing the course, and there was no growth. If anything, there was a decrease in revenues, and as you said, we had to subsidize the operations by moving money out of the general fund to keep it going. But it seems like they've been doing pretty well since they took over a few years ago. So
Right.
those are just my observations.
I mean, towns aren't necessarily good at everything.
No.
We don't do medical billing, we don't do golf, some towns maybe do golf courses well. My impression was it wasn't working out well here, and it was decided that, and plus we don't have the legacy costs of those employees, those would tail off as those employees
Mm-hmm.
retire, they retired and pass away, and
Yeah.
those costs go
So
away.
when the transition did happen, that the employees, there was probably 4 or 5 of them that did retire. Yes, they could. So those are the costs that you see being transferred into the general fund.
I just have one more question. Did the golf course use the whole 256 acres? Or is
I
there
don't
extra? And do we know anything about that water supply?
Don't say that too loud, Mary.
Well,
The state will snatch it up.
Yeah, right.
Stuff
no, because it's been given for, it's supposed to, it was from the family.
for the
for,
playground and waters.
Yes, it's for recreation.
Conservation. I mean, maybe we should make the whole 256 acres.
That's gonna take a little more study, sorry, Mary.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be here for a while, so.
Good question, don't know.
Yeah, well, maybe we should, so that no one can build on it or anything, and make sure we preserve that land. And we
Well,
should see
there's
if the
already a
water
restriction
supply.
on it for what its purpose was, that you're probably already protected.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I like to check to make sure that we are protected and that, what the water supply was. I mean, we might be sitting on water.
Well, I mean, Burn Street wells are certainly a possibility, it's just a very expensive possibility.
Yeah, but I mean, what did they mean when they said water supply? I mean, did they know that there was water?
Well, if Burn Street wells are there, then we know there's water there, but
Oh, okay,
it would require its own treatment plant, a new one besides High Street.
That's all bedrock,
Yeah,
right?
and it's all bedrock, so it's gonna be expensive,
Yeah.
so that's why we're considering other sources, because we just need to look around and make sure, make a good decision on what's the most cost effective,
yeah.
long-term reliable source.
Okay, if we move on with 13.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
Fine.
Really less than get going. The next one is the grants listing. Also talked with Blake and Lori about this. We thought it was good to look back on what the town has received for grants over the last few years. I think it's something to celebrate, but also then something to look forward to plan with the new town manager too. So,
Yeah, you guys got this list out, sometime last fall, the Lori's office updated it with current year.
Do we ever get any grants from Mass Leads Act? It's, I think it's under the Office of Travel and Tourism. There's a lot I think we're missing from under there.
I think it's a matter of the staff time. That's a good question.
Maybe
for
we
the
could get a
manager.
committee going, especially with the culture, because I mean, you could have a Bridgewater Triangle tour and stuff like that. I mean, some of the stuff that towns have.
Okay,
make a
no,
lot of
no,
money.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying, I think he's gonna need to decide, is that a priority? Who will manage it? Who will take it on?
Because I mean, the Mass Leads even supply grants for construction of libraries from the Library Commission, Board of Library Commission. I mean, there's a lot,
Mhm.
but we don't have one person looking in all that, right? We used to, wasn't it that it was you doing?
Well, only to take care of the High Street Dam and Bridge
Oh, okay.
project. That's how I started here. But just, because there was, lower staffing at the time in finance, and the grants would cover the cost of me doing the work. So it wasn't a cost of the town.
I'll bring it for the next comment, I guess, see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, if you see the grants on there, for
I
us
like
not
them.
having a grant coordinator, we do pretty well.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would say that she's right.
Yeah.
average
No.
about 8 million, well, 21 million was,
Yeah, but that's not
Under
the time.
nine, yeah. yeah, or-
That's not fair. We had to have a pandemic for that.
Yeah, because each department pretty much does it, right?
Huh?
The department heads pretty much look
Well,
into it and do
CED
the
does
best they
general
can.
government, but the town manager,
The fire department,
he did.
Michael did a lot on his own. I mean, that $8 million for High Street was pretty much him.
yeah, I know he was good at that.
So is Justin gonna wanna do that? Is he gonna wanna task an assistant with that,
I know we get into the town manager goals later
Yes.
in the agenda, but maybe it's good to,
But the
I
grants.
mean, I don't know your thoughts on this, but maybe, yeah, just have like a target number, not like an expectation or like but something that addresses like grant writing or applying to grants
Yeah,
Yeah,
as a way to
There's a
supplement.
lot of
He's
roadway.
just
and
getting here in
infrastructure
2 weeks.
grants,
Give
yeah.
him a little time.
Right.
and
We
you know,
have
maybe,
goals.
maybe not having an executive secretary, we could have a grant writer. We make more money that way.
Well, but I mean, you gotta think about what's the cost of an employee plus benefits,
Mhm.
and what are you gonna be able to bring in? You can't necessarily charge the grant person's time to a grant. Most grants do not allow administrative costs.
Secretary that
willing
knows
to-
how to write grants, how does that?
under job qualifications,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, one of the things, I'm not pressing my company, but that's one of the things we do for communities. Like I just wrote one for Oakham, Massachusetts last week for police for $40,000 of police equipment. I spent 5 hours on it.
Yeah.
Then I'm gonna bill them, the company will bill them $1,000 to help them get that grant. It's a good return of 40,000.
Yeah,
That little town should not pay somebody full-time to do that.
Yeah.
right,
So I think it's a cost benefit by Lori and Justin to decide, is it worth it? Some of these grants are pretty straightforward if you just apply, like the one I just mentioned. Some of them are not, so it's,
Yeah, so you have to-
But I would imagine from a town council standpoint, like priority of us would be for this person to seek funding,
Yeah,
additional revenue sources. So
absolutely.
without again putting a number on it, but just prioritizing that.
oh, sure.
I mean, even have an education program, so I mean, all the departments know how and where to look, and even kind of like us, when, wouldn't hurt for us to look if we took a
Yeah,
project on.
there's so many, like every division of
it's
every
unbelievable.
agency in the state,
Yeah.
like you could watch webinars all day of.
Yeah,
You
We'll
could,
get this grant opportunity, I literally get them all day and I'm like,
yeah,
Okay, just
well, like the
support
tree
for
committee
business.
identified that there's a tree planting grant. And he asked me about applying here, and I said, yes, that's possible. You've got to come up with a strategy of where you're gonna put them, and you're gonna have to prove that they provide cooling to the area that's a heat zone. And so someone's got to go do that work to figure that out, to apply for it, and then have a watering plan that you're gonna follow.
that's the thing.
That's all
isn't it?
possible, but someone has to work through
Yeah.
all.
Grants can be time consuming.
It can be.
Yes.
So I just say that's,
all right.
discussion is important.
Okay, moving on to the ARPA funds really quick is the last item. I know that we received, or I got some kind of notification about how much we've received.
yeah, I think Mr. Lundy was at the.
Plymouth County.
Yeah. So we applied for that, Plymouth County allocation was 4.9 million, that was the fire station, so we were given a check for it, so it's sitting in the town's funds. And it's to be spent on all of the allowable expenses for the station, which are just starting to come through. So we had to send a quarterly report to them because they hadn't put in the HVAC and all the things that qualified for to be eligible to spend against these funds, so. We hope the next quarter it should be spent.
I was watching the June 5th of it, and they were approving ARPA funds. And it said that they approved Bridgewater, they haven't cut the checks yet for $248,130.
Right, so back in, I think March, Plymouth County contacted the communities in Plymouth County and said a lot of the towns didn't spend all their opera money, so they're putting it back into the pot. So each community, we were allotted 10% of our original allotment of 4.9 million, which was about 400 and some odd. But it had to be a contract that was already in place, and the project had to be eligible according to the guidelines of ARPA, which we have one of the wells,
5R,
just
9R.
in 5R. And
So that's where the money's
9R.
going to?
So I applied with that contract, and then they came back and said, well, it's not gonna be 400, it's gonna be about 2, and that was just recently announced, so we should be able to take that money. We've already spent about 800,000 for the well, so we'll put that money into that fund. So now that'll be less that the town will have to pay.
That's great.
That's what, that's the
Good work.
notification, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on, public comment, any public comments? Item G, adjournment,
Motion for adjournment?
Can I suggest one thing to go on for the next thing? Could we look at the independent audits report from 2024? I was been digging into it, and there's questions I would like to ask.
the latest one that we just got the presentation on.
Yeah,
Because we haven't closed 25 yet.
yeah, so I second the motion to adjourn.
And then, wait, last question, sorry, before we take that.
Yeah.
Do we want to hold or talk about a tentative date depending on what happens Saturday? Because we will have to, right? Come
Well,
Together
the,
prior to.
the school committee will meet on Wednesday night, the 25th. Decide what they're gonna do about certifying the budget. If both towns pass it, the budget's certified, and then you will have to have a meeting to appropriate the funds to school, police, fire, roads, all the things that you said that they were in the override need to get allocated.
You'll have to call a special council meeting, I'd imagine, and then refer to budget and finance for further discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to the DOR, and as long as we make that appropriation before we set the tax rate, or
When do we do that?
in the fall, but
Oh.
I still think that it's a good, wise,
You should do it
Business
sooner because the
practice to-
school,
yeah.
the state, until both towns have moved the money into where it's gonna go,
Mhm.
the state considers that we haven't actually funded the budget.
Mhm.
And they put you into this process called the 1/12 budget, where they make you pay 1/12 until you get your house in order. So I think the school committee will want to see both towns take that step earlier rather than waiting till the fall. Plus, if we have firefighters that we interviewed and we'd be ready to hire, we could get going on all of that.
What happens if it doesn't pass? What do we do?
Laying people off. Well,
It depends on what the
school
school
does.
budget is certain.
I was gonna say, the meeting is adjourned, so as a member of the public, I just.
We didn't
Wait, we didn't
officially-
vote to adjourn
We
yet.
didn't go to adjourn yet.
Hold on.
Sorry.
Either the schools, depending what the school committee does, they're either, lowering their ask to what they cutting everybody they said they would cut, or they're certifying a number that we'll have to meet, and we'll either have to meet it or force a district-wide meeting.
So we'll go based on the special town council meeting. If there is one, we'll
Mhm.
anticipate meeting before that as budget and finance.
Yeah.
Do that?
Mhm.
Okay.
I mean, I would advise calling a special meeting, and then you could put the orders on, for the first reading, and then pass them by July 15th. I think July 15th would still give the schools their certified budget in time for no.
Because otherwise, they can't go out and plan to spend that money to hire people.
Yeah.
Which puts them behind being ready for school.
Yeah, if it passes, we don't want to slow them down in
No.
that process.
No.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so I would call a special meeting and then start that clock as soon as possible.
I guess the question would be when, but
We
Yeah.
have like
Sweet.
notice.
Sorry, it's just me. 14 days between meetings.
Yes,
Oh, right.
so it'd have to be the first.
So you have July 4th is a holiday, so you gotta minus that day.
So it'd have to be before.
So it's 15 days.
July 4th, right?
June 30th.
Well, there's no point in calling one on the 24th if Bingham's still moving.
Right, we
Yeah,
don't know
there's
the
some,
answer yet,
yeah.
that's why we need to really wait for school.
I mean, a special meeting doesn't have to be on Tuesday.
no, it could be any day. If we figure that out.
Yeah.
All right, we have 2 minutes. All in favor of adjournment?
Yeah.
Aye,
Aye.
all right.
Sure. Aye.